And I said, oh, Bruce is
No, that it would be amateurs. Might be a little slippery when we went back. I appreciate it, because
No problem.
I kept saying, well, I should drive over. I mean, it's not like it's
Hey, Harry. Two with Paul over there. I mean, with Fred. Conrad and
So, Bruce, I emailed you something.
Yes, I've got it. It's in here. I'll have to show you which folder I stuck it in, but it's on here.
we were hard souls without him. Everything.
There is the,
Every meeting in the state.
I think I was coming with that when I.
Oh, you slid away from this third eye. And like,
there's a
Well, I
whole,
came pretty close to the snowbanks.
Nothing shows a little power symbol.
oh, there it is.
oh, I said, I had a case of home I was gonna donate for that. So I thought, put all that together.
Okay, how about that goes on that side.
That goes in that side now.
Yeah.
Yep, looks like it. USB, right?
Square you.
spring
I
clothes.
don't see that particular one
Yeah.
touch anymore.
Jerry's gonna be working tonight.
As well, yes.
That is like that. So I should try to put it down.
More than likely.
Shoot.
So I have to, my next week's gonna be going
The
down.
passwords you gave here, didn't you?
Oh,
The passwords that you gave me, some.
Yes. I got
Secret.
secret test. That's it, that's it. That's what I gave myself. Says it. Well, I got everybody a password.
Hey, you haven't even taken off the film yet.
Oh, yeah, it's still new. There's that.
It's
I
kinda
didn't
nice
use
to
my
have
blinds
them
just
started.
regular.
That one, that one?
I just need
My wife was having trouble getting her phone. When her old one died, so I had to get her another one.
Bad news is
And,
she's picking up 10.
Last week she was having trouble getting it on. She's
As
had
long
it
as James
for
will
4 or 5 months now.
Well, no,
Still
that's
got the
fine.
plastic on the screens.
Want me to do it all?
I gotta keep on my ways.
There's one piece.
Holy smoke, it's all over the place, isn't it?
Oh, yes. There's even one covering, I'm not sure if it covers the whole screen or just these edges. Oh, just the
I
edges.
didn't have all those signs
Look at all that.
or parts of
Oh, you darn.
fibromyalgia.
Hey, now the camera can see you.
Sleep just really.
NSA.
Yeah, no.
Some
Yeah,
others-
Dave has friends.
My friends,
I have
I have to get political. I have to, I was,
They're spying on.
The Clifton Planning Board.
when the chairman of the SSCI got up and played about the city, I spied on it. I wanted to say two things. Number one, she wasn't upset with NSA, those revelations. And the other thing, my wife looked at me and said, what? What's what CIA does? You know, I know, not supposed to be the Senate, but.
I know, when the DCI was there, he just doesn't seem like a credible witness.
I dealt with John Bradley a few times back when he was not where he is now, back when he was a fairly senior manager though. He's not to be toyed with. He's just a pretty impressive guy.
So now what? So I have the screen up here, but I don't.
Well, have you
Oh,
signed
there it
on?
is. Oh, that's where you have to sign. I hadn't gotten to that.
Okay, just type in the password.
All right.
And it should come up.
I might have to hit the little button.
Yeah, it wasn't hard to set up. I'm not very computer literate, but I was able to get it all set up. There you go.
So now I gotta go.
Now you gotta go to,
F.
let's see, how did I?
That thing?
Go to your desktop. Oh, hit that little arrow there, see what that is.
There it goes.
Okay. And it's just a matter of finding it.
I'm gonna have somebody help me figure out how to.
Oh, I know, go
Tab.
Control Alt Delete, go to, you need to go to that where it says peripherals, you know.
Or Windows.
Oh,
Yeah.
Try to go to Task Manager and see if that does it.
what are we trying to do here?
You're trying to go to where it says, connect to
I
the,
have an
it is
Android
connected.
tablet, which I.
well, it's connected to internet.
And then this
But
is the
you
Android.
haven't connected it to the printer.
I can use my.
It is connected to the printer, it's just on the screen,
Okay, well,
right?
okay, I'm sorry, correct, stand correct.
Oh, I don't-
I need to go to,
And so when I go and I
the
select
website.
internet. on
Oh,
the-
that part.
goes directly to
Oh,
this
all right,
page.
so, all right, where's
And I
the,
can't figure out how to go anywhere else so that I could,
yeah, where's the,
That way you
you
won't
know,
go.
like
There it
do
is.
a Google search or something.
It's bookmarked,
And
so
my daughter, when
it
she
shouldn't be
gave
that
it
hard
to
to
me
find.
a year ago Christmas, I said I wanted it so I could have
And you
my
want to do that.
pictures on it. She downloaded all my pictures. And for a while she
No,
had it
this is
synced to my
high-tech.
computer and that was too much to have it synced all the time.
old
Yeah.
school? So, all right, now I gotta find the little, that's right, we know,
Yeah, there's several
Oh,
USB
anyway.
ports there. Should be several.
Pictures
Where would this thing go? Oh, this is a USB port.
synced with my
Yeah,
Kindle.
there should be 2 or 3 USB ports.
Probably.
It's
Or
not
at least with your
Yeah,
online
connecting
Amazon
yet,
account.
it's still churning.
Because I have this synced with my online Amazon account, so I have all the books.
Discussion last time.
Do you use the state library?
I haven't got into that now.
That's what I problem with that is you can have them for 2 weeks and then it disappears.
Yeah.
And they can do
That.
it.
We'll do that. All right, so, Paula, did you have material tonight? You wanted to talk about something tonight, right?
I'm semi-prepared. Did you want me to go first or?
Why don't we- And you're Mr. Kingsbury?
Yes,
Okay. Do you want to go first?
doesn't matter, you can go first, I can go after, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Whatever you do.
You guys, why don't you just go ahead and go first? And you've got basically like, up to 15 minutes to discuss anything. Now, did you bring any written material?
No,
Okay. Well, go ahead then.
well, my concern is the town will compete with 2 towns next to us with all kinds of different businesses and everything, and we're competing with the school board. And I've been in Clifton a long time, and when we started out here, my taxes was like $500 a year. Now they're $3,100 a year, and they're going up. And I highly support the windmills. I mean, we've gotta have something to come in here to take care of the slack. And if we don't, obviously we ain't gonna get no Walmart or nothing, but we do need something to offset our cost of living for everybody. So the biggest problem right now, he's a landowner, he invested all that money in his land, why can't he use it? I mean, it's his. I don't see it's nothing, it's not like a nuclear plant sitting up on the hill and it's windmills. When I heard about the windmills, I was kinda even on it. I didn't know one or the other, so I drove away. I was working up country and I stopped at Mars Hill. On the way back, the gate was open, so we drove up. And we got all the way up, almost lit to them before we heard anything. And everybody was stopping and watching them from the main road. So there must be some kind of traction to them because they was all stopping. And I didn't hear nothing. I was up within probably 300 or 400 feet till they had a gate there. I heard nothing, so we voted here how many times for it? 3 times, 4 times? thought it was already gone through, then you turn around and this, then I find out that we had an ordinance that weren't quite up to code. We had brought it up ourselves, and now they're preying on that. So I guess we reread it, but now I hope. So I can't understand why we're having such a problem getting that through. I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, when I run the business in Brewer, the guy out back, he was cutting wood and nobody said anything with him. He was cutting wood 12, 14 hours a day sometimes. And the windmills way up on the hill, they're not gonna bother nobody. So I just like to know what's the problem now, why they ain't going through. Or what we can do to make it even better for the people to get it through. I mean, he owns the land. It ain't like he's dumping raw sewage or something down over the hill. So, I think that, what do we gotta have, another vote? What's going on? I mean, I don't even know anymore.
What's happening now, Hayward, is that we're in the process of, the judge ruled in favor of the opponents based on some parts of the ordinance that are impossible for the developer to be able to do it, I guess in the simplest way. And the judge said essentially that being the case, it's still in the ordinance. And so we're not only looking at we're reviewing the whole ordinance, and we're taking it segment by segment, and we're attempting to update it, make corrections, and then once again, this is going to have to go to a vote in June. The board hasn't decided yet, and the citizens haven't decided if we're going to be able to vote this whole book as one vote, or whether we might have to take the wind part out and vote that separately. We don't know what's going to happen. So
Didn't anybody take that to a lawyer and have him check that before it went out to the judge?
well, a lot of this was put together by taking parts of other towns' ordinances. So I can't say with certainty how some of the parts got in there, especially within the wind ordinance, the industrial wind turbine ordinance, that part. I'm not sure where some of that came from. Most of the experts, I say most of the qualified experts that have reviewed portions of it, say that they look at it and they see that that's an impossible part for anybody to adhere to. There's a couple of areas that the judge ruled against the plan, against the planning board and ruled against the appeal board.
Bill, instead of, we should probably just get any additional information he has. I mean, do you, just as far as you said, one of the things I just picked up from this was that you didn't know like what we were going to do next. Just out of curiosity, have you made any written comments about the ordinance in the notebook across the hall?
No, I haven't.
Okay, probably. Okay, it would be good to come in and do it. Did you even know that you could do that?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you use the internet at all?
What's that?
Do you ever use the internet?
No, my wife does, I don't.
Right. What you might want to do if your wife uses the internet is have her come to the website, and you can get the website address next door, and then you can see what's going on meeting by meeting because there's meeting minutes there. Because I just want to make sure that people are staying informed, and that's what. So you probably weren't really, since you don't use the internet, you probably weren't really aware of how to go and find that part out, right? Is that true?
Well, I figured, we voted for it, and it passed. Then it was something else, we voted again, it passed. So I figured, it was all set. Then I read that article. And
what happens is for any project that comes in front of the planning board, there's a right of appeal for people, or if the town planning board indicates that they don't, deny the project, deny the permit basically, then what happens is the developer can take the town to court. There's a whole process for that. Or even if the town approves the permit, then a citizen in town or interest group or any kind of business entity, or however you want to lay it out, you know, a person can take the town and the developer to court to show that the town didn't do everything that they thought the town should do in order to demonstrate compliance. So basically, that's where it came down to. Finally, in the Superior Court, there were like 10 items, and then it came down to 2 out of 10 items that were actually taken to Superior Court were found to be in favor of the person who was concerned about the approval of the permit. That's roughly what happens. And then now it's in Supreme Court, so you just have to let that go and do what it does. And it really shouldn't really, except for the fact that you're learning lessons about what judges like to see and what courts don't like to see. Those are things that you try to incorporate into ordinance for avoiding future problems. But that's roughly the process. Did you have any like specific suggestions, like for how we should regulate anything in town, or whether it be gravel pits or subdivisions, or do you have any specific concerns like that about anything else?
No, I mean, it's just, I figured it was a goal, you know, and I guess everybody I talked to thought it was. And all of a sudden it got fetched up, but I guess what I'm trying to say is the guy owns all that land, he's sitting on it. Somebody, you know, I mean, that is not, it's just like if you own 2 acres of land and you want to build a shed, and then all of a sudden they say, the judge said you can't build a shed on your land. Right?
Right.
I mean, come on,
One person.
one person makes a decision.
Right, Fred just let Hayward talk. So, all right, so I think we got the gist of it pretty much. I mean, I took some notes here. Do you have anything else?
No,
All
that's
right.
it.
All right, thanks. Just in the future, if you want to come again, it's the easiest thing for us for this particular piece is to bring something written down that we can kind of post up and put with the
Yeah,
minutes for the meeting.
well, I'll get that down for you,
Okay. All right, thanks.
but, okay, that's it for me then.
Thanks. Paula, what did you have for us tonight?
I didn't get a response from the office, so did you guys get a page of changes that I proposed to Articles 12 and 13?
I was on the road and I actually only got back a couple hours ago, so I haven't had a chance to access any print material.
You said Articles 12 and 13 in the email that was forwarded, but I only got 1 page here that has to do with this.
I saw, I did see like 1 page.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so apparently, at least a couple people did anyway, alright. So on Article 12, the impact assessment and dimensional requirements,
Okay, hang on. Okay, yep.
at the bottom of the first page of Article 12, the last sentence, in keeping with Article 3, Section 3, and as an
We're
amendment.
looking at what's in blue on here? Are we talking about what's in blue on this page?
Red.
You guys have put in what's in blue, is what you propose to.
Oh, okay, so what part, I'm tracking now, never mind, sorry.
Okay, so you guys proposed to make a change in Article 3, adding about that if it's a general commercial, industrial, or institutional project in GMA 3, that they should go, and I wasn't here when you discussed it. I was curious what municipal officials mean, but we don't have to talk about that tonight. If you don't want to create a development overlay area. So I thought that was good. And what I'm saying is at the bottom of this first page of Article 12 that you may need another sentence tying those two, just as a reminder in Article 12 that back in Article 3 you said that development overlay areas are
I see what you're saying.
are addressed back there. So I'm just saying, first, you just need a sentence to refer people that in Article 3 that's I mean, that would be my suggestion, that you might need another sentence just to tie that two things together. I didn't write a sentence for you. You're good. Dave doesn't like my run-on sentences. Me either, but anyway, so I didn't write one. All right, but that's what I would suggest, that you mention that there, so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
Okay.
And then the second proposal I had for Article 12, on your maximum height of structures without occupied space. I just suggested a clause at the end of that. Unoccupied structures with height exceeding 35 feet will be subject to height restrictions as determined by the board to be appropriate and necessary for the proposed use. And I just suggested that you add, unless a specific maximum height requirement provision for the proposed use is prescribed elsewhere in this ordinance.
Probably read it 100 times. Is there one?
Yeah, I don't say that it says that there has to be a maximum height. I say a maximum height provision. So like for telecommunication towers, we say there is no maximum height provisions, requirement. So that would be a provision, you know? So it would override.
Right, in the non-industrial wind part, we say there is no height requirement.
You know, and so that would just tidy it up, that you're not saying the blanket statement that.
No, and actually, that's what I was going to mention to you, as far as in the wind turbine portion, we should, deal with that height issue or some other place in the ordinance. I mean, it shouldn't say, whatever's deemed appropriate or something like that, or I don't know, it should be more specific.
Why not? The judge supported us.
Well, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Whether it's new technology in anything could mean they were lower or higher.
Well, what the judge said, if I read it correctly, was he said that something that's 450 feet into the air, I need to know how you came about saying that was an appropriate and necessary height for that project.
Correct, but he did not say that our ordinance was incorrect. He simply said we
Right.
needed to specify
Right.
more how we reached the decision.
Right. And
That has nothing to do with the ordinance not being legal as is.
no, I didn't say it wasn't.
Well, no, she wasn't saying that at all. She was just recommending that there be some connectivity there, which, I mean, I can see that, we should let it keep going. I think it's worthy of some discussion here, because I don't think it's unreasonable to deal with, to make things less vague.
And that would be a reminder that if something new came along that you were gonna make a height requirement for or whatever, or something that was taught, that you might want to have a specific statement in there saying whatever, just like you did for telecommunication towers.
And this sentence would cover that. Something that might be a future amendment to the ordinance, you're saying?
Well, I'm just saying that,
To a portion,
Well, in
address it.
general, I mean, let's just say we had apartment houses, just to be simplistic, okay? We're talking about wind stuff all the time. So if we had apartment houses, we said we wanted to have a maximum height in the apartment house part of the ordinance, if it said 90 feet or whatever, okay, then, that would be the restriction in that. That's what that sentence means. So if it was a water tower, and water towers could be 150 feet, at the maximum, it would say that's all that would do is, there is no restriction unless it says water towers can only be 150 feet. Apartments can only be 90 feet or whatever. That's all that says.
it just says
It's just
that,
tidying things. It's a really just like she described it. It's just a tidying things up.
unless you make a specific one, it would still be,
Whatever.
you guys determine what's
Right.
appropriate and necessary.
Right. It's just a right.
Okay.
It's like a I see what you're saying.
All right, so that was in Article 12. In Article 13, well, all right, everybody ready? Got grips on your chairs and everything? Okay, so what I'm proposing is that under general industrial uses, you add electrical generating facilities, or whatever the correct term for that would be, to the industrial uses. and move it out of transportation and utility uses. And in the general industrial, you add another line, tier 3 high impact electrical generating facilities only allowed in GMA 3 in an adopted DOA per Article 4. When we wrote the ordinance to begin with, I don't believe that I appreciated the difference between distribution, transmission, and generation. Most of what we were looking at in utilities, we said, well, we have to allow them anywhere in town because you have to get the electricity to the house, you have to get the business, you have to get the telephone line to the people. So we were looking at, those were things that needed to be anywhere in town, and so we didn't want to restrict them. And then when we had pretty much, I can't remember the order of events, but we pretty much had that down when industrial wind turbines came along, and it was electrical, goes in the utility. I would argue now that if we had had a gas generating electrical facility, or as somebody said, a nuclear plant or something, we wouldn't say that should be allowed in any part of the town. We would say, we gotta look at that and see where that should be. And our idea on large general industrial things was, those things we can't determine when we're doing this ordinance, we gotta leave it for a development.
So just so I can get my head wrapped around some of this stuff, because actually, I tried to understand the difference in different types of zoning situations, completely unrelated to this wind issue that is more regarding or around these different types of clinics and stuff that are out there. So what's the difference between a development overlay? Because one thing I think, like in a town like Clifton, that development overlay thing, to me, I'm so confused by it, trying to go through and do it all, number one. And number two, how is that different than spot zoning, which is illegal?
That's what we tried to make sure it wasn't, by saying it had to be a certain number of acres, it had to not be just for that, I can't remember the wording precisely. And like Mr. Kingsbury asked, did you have a lawyer look this over? I mean, I was begging for a lawyer to look this stuff over, and that never happened, and that's my biggest regret, that we got pushed through it, and we never had a legal opinion on a lot of this stuff. I tried to run most everything by MMA legal, but in that last year, I mean, we were moving right along, and that process didn't always happen.
I don't want to go back to that year, because I think of things that should have been done and weren't done, vice versa, and I can definitely, if you're trying, for passing out responsibility for how it got the way it got, I mean, there's enough for everybody to eat that pie. But anyway, right now though, I mean, that would be my, one of my concerns about it. And the other thing is, one thing that I don't like, just in general, and I think I'm definitely sharing the board's opinion on this stuff. We don't like the idea that certain types of things that are legitimate business ventures for anybody, whether they be adult entertainment or these clinics or wind turbines or wood burning facilities or whatever, if they're legal businesses in Maine, as long as they're properly regulated, I think that the general opinion, I think if you went across the town for the most part and didn't put like a picture of whatever you're talking about in front of them, you just talk about them in nice general big terms, that they want reasonable regulations to be able to do those legal businesses that are in Maine. We're not going to do uranium mining or whatever, because we don't even have any uranium in the ground probably in Clifton anyways, but,
And that's why in late 2008 and into 2009, we took a hard look, and I kept researching, and I came across this performance zoning that seemed to fit more with what you guys wanted to do. You didn't want strict restrictions. You can't do that over there, you can do it over here. You didn't want that, so we went for performance zoning where you made a whole bunch, it meant a lot more regulations on things, but it meant fewer restrictions on
Right, so
where
if you
could
look
do
at the
it.
way, even, because the wind has been the big cantankerous thing, we've made strong efforts to try to do it based on performance, and not based on arbitrary numbers. So we get called, well, why don't you have it 13 times the tower, just like to have it in Holden? Well, what's the basis for that? Do you even know what the basis for that is?
Well, to go back to Mr. King's, the discussion before was, what we did, we took Thorndike's ordinance. Did we ask Thorndike, where did you get your ordinance? No, we didn't.
No, I'm agreeing with that, but I mean, I'm just saying in Holden, that was proposed, I think, a couple weeks ago, you put that forth, okay?
There are
So my question though is, if you were gonna tell me, you're gonna come in there and you're gonna advocate for why it should be 13 times back, you're up here, Paula Kelso, explain to me why it's 13. So I mean, just,
Bruce was saying 4,000 feet is arbitrary. I think that it would be better to go, to get farther along than what we're really dealing with tonight, but I think it would be more reasonable, and then you don't have to worry about your appropriate and necessary height and your setbacks if you went with times the tower height, times the
well, right, well,
turbine height.
that is arbitrary.
No, I think it has some, you can,
How come?
I don't know who came up with 13. I've also seen it 11 in some.
Okay, well, who comes up with 11?
I think you can go and find some.
I mean, I'm not trying, honestly, I'm not trying to badge you, I'm trying to make I'm always just trying to make a point of, now, because the distance really isn't, the distance is not, you never hear anybody, or I don't want to put it that way, what you hear the concern that is out there in the field tends to be the sound. So, and trying to go with your zoning idea of performance zoning, because I do think that performance zoning works, but the bigger question here is, so we have performance zoning, so we set up a performance standard, and performance is the sound, and the sound seems to be in order, but then they're still concerned because the person can still do the work. So now, we can't use the sound, so we're going to use something that's arbitrary. So in coming up with these zoning overlay, or these development overlay areas, my concern is, how we go about getting the approval for the development overlay at the time of the action.
Something that's still in my head, because I'm not sure about the difference between a development overlay area, which I think we made up out of thin air. I don't think we and conditional zoning. I think I looked at conditional zoning and kind of morphed it into different.
And that's actually what they have in Brewer. They call it, I think that they do call it conditional zoning, or contract zoning is actually what they call it.
Yeah.
So what they do is they have a contract for a certain site, and they have to meet performance standards on that site, and they have a very specific contract.
And if that goes out of existence, then it reverts to whatever it was.
Right, and there's like ways of doing that, and I was getting close to time to head out the door when Lynn and I were talking about it, so, maybe contract zoning is something to look into. Contract zoning is a little bit more, legally, engaging, but, we can look at all that, but I'm just saying, this whole idea of coming up with the development overlays, I have a little bit of a concern about getting into that zone of spot zoning, which definitely has been determined to be illegal.
Right. That's one of the things that I wish we had a chance to run by a lawyer.
We should look at that some more.
Yeah.
You proposing to put electrical generating facilities into general industrial uses and activities, isn't that a rather vague term? I mean, electrical generating facilities, there are so many different, under our current ordinance, putting it into GMA, putting it into that category in GMA 3, which this would come under high impact, we have no, all the way down, for any of these. If this were to go into...
That's the other...
it's...
That's the other thing, that you would change...
because aren't some, just by the nature of what electrical generating facilities are, some have to be in a rural area because of what
Well,
you folks are arguing about.
like a hydro plant, you gotta have a river. You got
Yeah.
a gas, what, you need a gas line
Or
or
they used to
something,
have that peat plant, they had to have next to a peat bog.
you know?
Technically, however, the way your proposal would mean even someone that wants to put a small windmill on their property would now have what is classified as an industrial use.
No,
So
because
would
I'm only
cogeneration.
I know what she's talking about, and she actually started, just in fairness to Paula, Paula did start the thing off by saying, she just said the concept, she didn't say we had to use those exact words. She's just trying to get a concept out there, okay, and she's leaving it up to us.
Oh, I understand,
Right.
but quite frankly, the concept is sort of a backdoor way of trying to put,
Obviously, but I think that, you know,
you'd have,
she's not trying to, I'm just defending Paula here. Clearly, she doesn't want to have, she'd like to have the wind towers not where they are. She'd like to have something like that unless you had some sort of a process per Article 4. But just to be crystal clear here, you know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that Paula is advocating for not letting somebody put up a personal use wind turbine. Is
right, I
that
mean,
correct?
we're talking about the
Right, that's all she's
industrial,
talking about. She's only talking about that one topic, so don't
you know,
try to
that,
read into it.
and then the use tables,
Keep the,
you know, where we put it now in utilities, put it under industrial, and then instead of saying where you allow it, you just say, because it's obviously gonna be a tier 3 if it's an industrial wind facility.
right, this is what I would recommend, okay, as far as from a thought process for looking at it. I mean, if we were gonna adopt something like that, you know, and probably, now this came up again, because we never really have experimented that much with those overlays, okay, before we make some sort of a decision about it, you know, we should go back, look at how the overlay process even works in the first place. Try to get our head
I
around
look at this as a legal quagmire, especially where you brought up the term about the spot zoning, plus the fact that there are big ends for industrial use in GMA3. You're creating one of those paradoxes which is almost impossible. Okay, a judge can say, would you agree, yes or no?
Okay, this is an interesting discussion, but this is the thing, and I'll call you a second, Paul. I agree, but rather than just have this discussion out of thin air, okay, what I'm recommending is that we take a look at Article 4, see exactly what Article 4 says, because maybe what we should be doing is, we should be looking at Article 4, maybe we want to take the whole concept of the development overlays out, because in fact it is a form of spot zoning that we don't want to have. Maybe we should give it to a lawyer. I mean, there's just like a whole, you know, strata of things to look at, you know, for Article 4, and not just, you know, start popping these sort of discussions out before we have it in front of us and read it. I'm just recommending
Yeah, well,
that be
I
more
did read
appropriate.
Article 4 today.
You know, I mean, I just see, you know, a little string dangling out of the ball of twine, you know, and you pull on it very much in the whole,
Maybe we shouldn't even have them in town at all, because they're probably too complicated to do, but maybe they're a good idea. I just don't know, because I don't have Article 4 in front of me. We can come here to talk
I mean,
about Article 4 tonight.
it was a compromise solution to wanting to have some control over development in town, but not wanting to have barricades to development in town. It was a compromise solution that we couldn't see far enough ahead to say, if you've got a tier 3 high impact industrial use, we want you to be there. We had no place established except for the mill lot that had a high impact industrial use. We said, okay, we can't do that now, but if something comes along, we'll rezone, we'll make it into a development overlay area, or rezone, or do something, you know?
Okay, so anything else?
Not on 12 and 13. I also sent you a footnote on but that's not tonight's topic, on the marijuana.
Okay. And I think I've ever seen that. Some of it, look, I kind of understood a little bit of it, but I didn't have time to absorb it all. So, because Bruce, you have like your hands full with this wind turbine updates, okay? So I don't even want you to fool with development overlays, okay? I mean, you just don't have time. to be realistic.
No,
You
I
don't.
wouldn't mind if you threw it out, I found it completely complicated and
So, Bill, you have had a lot of input on this, and you were on the board before when this all came about in the first place. So, do you mind trying to go through, look at the development overlay section, and then maybe come back, like, not next week, but maybe in 2 weeks or sometime, with some sort of, like, a flow chart that even shows us, like, how it even works? Like, if somebody came in with a project that we need to do a development overlay for, like, Paul, you can relax, huh? You can sit down.
Okay.
But I mean, unless you have something else, unless you want to stay and you want to keep chatting away, but I mean, I want to address what you're talking about, and I hadn't really put a lot of thought into the whole DOA thing anyway.
All right, well,
If you can go through
you
and,
know what?
I don't even know
All
how
right,
it
if
works.
you'll allow me to seek out and to have discussions via the phone with, just specific to this topic with Paul.
You have a problem with that, Paula?
No, I'll forward you, if I come, we had a list of 10 or 12 requirements for a development overlay area. I must have got those from somewhere. I don't know if it came out of conditional zoning or
Right,
what.
I just want to know, I just want to have an understanding that we can actually look at, that in an easy to follow form and see what it looks like. And then, Bill, from your, just like, like a little bit of either a narrative, but a flow chart would be even better. A person comes to town, they want to do this, do you have to get a town vote, do you don't have to get a town vote? Who are the players involved with it, and how do you get to the outcome? I mean, because right now, I couldn't, if somebody came in, I don't even have a clue on how that works. Well, that's why I want you to do it. We should have a clue as to how that part works.
I'll look into it.
Because we definitely, we can't even entertain anything of what Paul just said without understanding how that works, because it's not gonna
All right,
flow.
okay.
Do you have something to add?
Yes, I do. I have three things. At a public meeting about 2 years ago, Peter Beckford said that if our noise from our turbines was at 35 dBA at his property line, that he would be fine and satisfied. When we showed that it was 32 at his property line, then he saw that he didn't have a battle, he changed the whole fight. He went after something different. What I see and what Paul is bringing up brings up a quagmire in two different categories. The first one with the GMA3 and an overlay of sorts, when she gets into the necessary and appropriate use, that to me seems to be one of those terms that anybody can pick apart at just about any time, just as the judge did. And I think that part needs to be better defined, and I thought you did a very good job when it came to the planning board would determine that there was no height standard for that industrial wind farm. But when you put in necessary and appropriate use, you open up the floodgates for somebody to come in and decide, like Peter Beckford did with the 35 dBA at his property line, that necessary and appropriate is something that they want to define, not the Clifton.
Just so I can keep track of this and have it written down properly. You're talking about the necessary and appropriate use for the height, is that
That's
correct?
Yes.
So, and you're saying that that's not good language, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that I think that needs to be tightened up because it's left for interpretation to whoever wants to interpret it. I thought we did a very good job of explaining to the judge. I think that the planning board did a very good job explaining to the judge why you made the decisions that the turbines at those height were fine, but he had problems with it. He wrestled over it. So when you put necessary and appropriate use in one place for height of a structure that's not inhabited, and then in another place it says for wind turbines necessary and appropriate use, you're going to have a fight on your hands from the anti-wind farm people saying, look, here in your ordinance it says it's a non-occupied structure, it's necessary and appropriate use, and then over in this section you contradict that.
Okay, so the takeaway from that second comment, I gotta go back to the first one, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take away from that. The second one is, it says the necessary and appropriate use, you feel that the language is vague and and it allows for inconsistencies in the ordinance. Is that the takeaway?
That's correct.
Okay. Now this first one, when you brought up that issue with the 35 dBAs at the property line, and then you demonstrated it was 32 dBAs, and it still wasn't okay, like what is my takeaway from that?
The point is, if it's not tight, if it's not clear, then the battle will just change. If we showed that the tower height was appropriate at 455.
Okay, so the 35 and 32 issue was just to illustrate the height issue. It had nothing to do with anything else.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to understand what I was supposed to take away from that.
Understood.
So, all right. Anybody else have any questions about anything? Oh,
I've got
okay,
one
go ahead.
more.
Go ahead.
I also don't have Article 4 in front of me. I don't know what Paula was referring to when she was talking about transmission, distribution, and generation, Tier 3. I'd like to see, and certainly it's what I'll have to do, I think we'll all have to do that, look at the fine line, because just as we got stuck in different terminologies and different ways with other parts, it seems like that could be a perfect way to put a roadblock in front of a development by the wording that's in what she referred to. So I don't think we're dealing with Article 4 tonight, but I think that it really needs to be examined very closely for that reason.
It's Article 13 is where we talk about utilities.
And where's the Tier 3 development overlay? Or the
That-
Tier 3? Is that Article 4?
That's 4.
Okay.
That's what they're proposing to put into 4.
Yeah, and Bill, when you go through that, if you can kind of maybe shed a little bit of commentary on